Ian, welcome back, brother. It's been a while. How's life? How's everything?
Good, man. Good. It has been a while. Definitely got some news to talk about. Both the NFL draft and NBA draft have wrapped up. So got some new faces to both the Hornets and the Panthers here in 2025. How are things going with you?
All's well, man. We got through those two drafts. Kind of nervous going into them, but finally done. We'll go into those today. Buzz Pound, we're glad to be back today. We're not officially back with season two, but we told you all on that last episode that we'll probably be back this summer, sometime after the draft. So here we are. Now let's get into it. Ian, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Touchdown, Carolina! You're listening to the Buzz Pound.
Smith scores, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime.
A Queen City sports podcast covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers.
Halliburton, nowhere to go! LaMelo's done it! LaMelo's done it! Hornets win! Here comes LaMelo.
Here are your hosts, Ian Blair and Cam Gardner.
Buzz Pound, welcome back. Ian, let's get right into it. We got a lot to cover.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we'll go right into the Panthers. NFL Draft 2025 came and went. A lot of action going on there. Ian, what you think overall? What do you think about our moves?
Yeah, I think the Panthers had a good draft overall. Obviously getting Tedero and McMillan with the eighth pick, I think was kind of showed what the front office, kind of their ideas and what they want to do in 2025, kind of surrounding Bryce with some more weapons, and obviously having the offensive line return, having all five starters return is going to be huge, and then now we have some more weapons. Tedero and McMillan, obviously with the eighth pick, and then you know Nick Scorton, and then we kind of went defense. So Nick Scorton, Princely, um, Lathan Ransom, I thought was a good pick, and um,
Cam Jackson.
yeah, Cam Jackson. So we really just shored up that defense, and then I think the addition of Trevor Etienne was really a good pick as well, especially with Jonathan Brooks being out the majority or all of 2025 season, recovering from a torn ACL, back-to-back years with a torn ACL. So it's going to be good. I think we definitely made the team better. Every NFL team's going after the draft thinks their team got better. Nobody think they got worse, but I really think I'm excited to see what Tet McMillan does in 2025, whether he takes over that wide receiver one role early on, because our wide receiver room is kind of still really has a lot of unproven playmakers. Like, Xavier Legette still is unproven. Adam Thielen is proven, but he's old. He's towards the end of his career. And I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of what Tet McMillan does in year one, whether he's as advertised and, that number one guy, or it's kind of a committee like it has been.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ted McMillan was probably our major pick of the draft. Kind of surprised me. I was expecting to go a defensive pick with that first pick. We talked
Yeah.
about that. I was very surprised by that. And personally, I had to do a little homework on him. I don't watch a whole lot of Arizona football, if I'm being honest, but I like what I saw. He's not how can I put it? He's not the shiftiest receiver I've ever seen, but he knows how to get open. He's good at catching passes. He knows how to get touchdowns.
Mhm.
I'll go into a little bit of his background here. He is 6'5", weighed in at 212 pounds. Like I said, he went to Arizona. Overall, in 3 years, he had 213 receptions, 3,423 yards, and 26 touchdowns. Like I said, all in 3 seasons. So I'll take that. I think Bryce Young could work with that. And like I said, I mean, he knows how to get open. In those 3 years, 26 touchdowns, that's pretty solid. So maybe he'll get that wide receiver one. I mean, between him, like you said, we got Leggett, who still has a bit to prove. And we can't forget Coker as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. I think And Hunter Renfro and all the other guys. This wide receiver room's kind of loaded. There's definitely going to be some cuts. It's going to be interesting to see who doesn't make the roster. Because, an NFL team only carries 6 or 7 at the max receivers on their active roster. And we have, between Jimmy Horn, who is kind of a late round sleeper, and Jalen Coker and Adam Thielen and Hunter Renfro and Xavier Legette and a bunch of other guys we have lower on the depth chart. It's going to be interesting to see who gets cut. But yeah, as you mentioned, he's a bigger guy. I saw a lot of comps to T. Higgins and Drake London, kind of both bigger receivers. He's definitely not the shiftiest because he's a little bit he's bigger, more a contested catch kind of guy, but he can get open for a guy that's 6'5", 6'4". Definitely moves really well for a guy that big. It's really hard to move as well as he does, and T. Higgins and Drake London, all those guys. Um, it's hard to move when you're 6'4", 6'5" like that. So it's definitely impressive. His college film was impressive, but hopefully he can bring it over to the NFL level.
I agree. And in all seriousness, I can laugh while I say this, but having a big receiver like that with the Panthers, you know what history we've had with that with
Yeah.
Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah.
Um, I just pray for nothing like that, which I doubt with this kid. I think we got something special, but we said the same thing about Kelvin Benjamin when he came
Yeah.
in. So,
Yeah. Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess. We don't have the greatest history with big receivers, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see. I saw another comp, to Mike Evans, which I think is really generous because Mike Evans has been a consistent wide receiver one in this league and over 1,000 yards for the past like 10 years, I believe. Um, and that would be nice to have a little Mike Evans out there running around, but I don't know about that. But I think he's definitely talented. There's a lot of potential there, and hopefully he can gel well with Bryce Young and kind of get us past that next step and solidify our offense and our receiver room. Obviously with Chuba coming back, Trevor Etienne, Rico Dowdle, we have a decent kind of running back by committee. If you're not a Panthers fan, you're not really high on that running back room because it's not Saquon or Bijan Robinson, or you don't get that big name. But I still think we have a solid backfield and overall a solid team. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year.
I agree. I mean, we say it every year. Can't get worse, but we've seen
Yeah.
worse from where we were when we last said that.
Yeah.
So let's hope with these, picks we got, hopefully we can build something. I'm pretty happy with the defensive picks we got because obviously defense is what we really needed to work on.
Mhm.
Like I said, I personally was hoping we were going to get a defensive pick with that first round pick number 8, but I'm okay with it. At least we made up for it. So we just have to see. Hopefully we can allow less touchdowns as we did this past season because
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the most amount of touchdowns I think was it touchdowns or yardage? I forgot.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was both. I'm not 100% sure
Probably
off the top of
both.
my
We'll
yeah.
just go with both at this point.
Yeah.
All I know is we made history with that. So, but what are your expectations going into the season? Like, what are you thinking?
I think
Win loss record, all of that. I know that's a big conversation for us right now
I think
as
we
Panther
get
fans.
8 wins. I think 8 wins is a good spot to be at. I'd love to push to win the division, but we've got progressively better these past couple years. It's huge for us to bring Canales back for year two because we've been at a revolving door with coaches and overhauling the entire staff, and that's never good for players, even at the professional level, because you don't have any like consistency. And I think bringing Canales back and retaining a lot of the same staff and everything like that, um, it's just gonna help. I think Canales with what he had to work with last year, did a really good job. I mean, obviously the team wasn't that great last year, but it's gotten better. And I think, if we could squeeze out, I mean, we were at five wins last year. I think if we could definitely squeeze out 3 more and potentially being sitting around 8. And in the NFC South, I think 8 wins, with how bad this division is, that's you're looking at second or third in the division, and if we can get on a streak, potentially being, number one in the division with how weak it is right now. I mean, I don't think the Saints are going to be any good at all this year. I think they're going to be having a top 5 pick in next year's draft, and we're looking at, see what Baker does, continues to do in Tampa Bay, and then the Falcons. I think those are, our division is really weak. We've said it this entire podcast, many previous episodes, but really it's wide open. And Bryce Young is still really young. I think Penix is young too, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does this year in Atlanta. Um, but I think 8 wins. I think 8 wins is a good spot for us. Some people call me crazy for saying that, especially in the office. Um, but I think 8 wins is a really good spot for us.
Yeah, I mean, one can hope.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to see 8 wins, but I'll be personally satisfied if we hit that at least 5 mark because the past few seasons we've only been getting like 2 wins.
Yeah. Well, we hit five. We hit five last year. I don't want to sit around five. I think this team's better than five. So
I know. I'm just one of those guys with this team. Like I want to see better, but you almost got to expect the worst with these
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
And sometimes I got to do that in order to make myself happy with whatever the outcome is. Like this past season, I didn't think we were going to get more than 2 wins again, but we did. And they exceeded my expectations with that. It wasn't good, but it was better than I expected. So I was able to be pleased. So
yeah,
hopefully this season they can surpass that 5 mark. But in my mind, that's just where I'm going to set it to be. Hopefully they can get to that 8 because I will happily take that. And like you, at work in the office, we talk about it. I actually have the luxury of working with two other diehard Panthers fans, so they're a lot more head over heels than I am. I try to be
yeah,
a realist about things, but when you're a fan, you're a fan. You want to see your team do well, no matter how good or how bad you are. But
yeah, yeah,
no, I would love to see us, get 8 wins. Deep down, I want that. So hopefully, with this talent we obtain with the draft, and like you said, keeping Canales around because it's been a while since we had a coach around for another year. With that last coach we had, he didn't stick around for more than a year. He barely made it through one season. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so,
It's
but
kind of a expect the worst, hope for the best kind of approach for me, at least. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this team's let me down for the past like 7, 8 years, so I wouldn't be surprised if somehow we only win like 2 games and Bryce Young gets benched and we draft a quarterback next year. It'd be like, oh, just same old Panthers. This happens every year, but it's kind of, hope for the best, expect the worst. So I'm gonna, hope for 8 wins, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're really bad again because that's just how this team's gone under David Tepper, really. Um, and this ownership, team we have right now, it's just been that way. And hopefully we could turn around. I have faith. I'm trying to be positive with this team, but these past couple years have just been horrible. But we've got a young team, a ton of good pieces, and we'll see what happens in 2025.
rinse and repeat. But hopefully, this is not a repeat year. Hopefully, it's
Yes.
something a little better than what the past few seasons have been. But well, I guess it's time to go into some basketball. NBA draft happened last week. What were your what were your takeaways? What were your wins? What would you think overall?
Yeah. So I think it was interesting to see. I think a lot of people wanted Ace Bailey at number 4. We ended up getting Don Kneppel is I believe how you pronounce his name. Which after doing a little bit of research, I'm way more. I love the Hornets. I love the Panthers. I'm way more of a football guy by nature than I am a basketball guy. So I always have to do my research after the draft and kind of look at some prospects because he kind of rised. I feel like he was a riser. Throughout the draft process. And obviously, Cooper Flag was going number 1, um,
Which we
Dylan,
should have had. In reality, we
yeah,
should have had it.
yeah, and you
I
knew
will
Dylan
forever
Harper
say that.
was number 1 and number 2 were kind of cemented in my mind. And then some prospects. You always get some guys from overseas and stuff like that. So anytime the Hornets draft like a guy from overseas, like especially last year with Salon, I have to do research. I watch the highlights, obviously, which is probably not the best thing to do. Just to watch his highlights because you don't see any of the low lights or what he needs to what he needs to work on. Um, but I think Don's going to be a good player, especially like for what the team needs right now. He's a winner, kind of a gel guy and like a team first guy. He really doesn't care about the score, like his stat line. He just wants to win. I think that's going to be huge for this roster. Um, and then, we got some guys in the I believe we did have another number one pick because we traded Mark Williams, which was finally solidified today. The physical went through with the Suns, so that was good to see. And um, we had a later first round pick and then a couple second rounders. So we really had a big draft class. I mean, four guys you're bringing in. Um, and another guy from Duke. I forgot his name right off the top of my head. The other,
Zion James.
yeah, the other guy. So good to bring some Duke guys to the team. And they were really played really well last year. Almost won a national championship, obviously in the Final Four. So I think it's going to be really beneficial for this team. And I think hopefully we could turn around and we made a big trade here in the past couple days, which I think is going to be really huge too, because we got them for pretty cheap. We'll talk about it a little bit here in a few minutes, but overall a good off season for the Hornets. I think it's not this team has just been it was such a disappointment last year because we thought they were gonna push for a play-in spot, look really good, and of course the injury bug hit us again as it has the past 4 years at this point. Um, but I think we had a good draft class, and obviously, I don't think all four of those guys are going to make the roster. Especially we're looking at I know the second round center we drafted out of um, Creighton, maybe was it Creighton that we drafted out of? The guy that,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Creighton.
Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, Ryan Cobrenner. Yeah. I think he'll make the roster because we're just so light on center depth right now. We really don't have, especially after trading away Mark Williams. I don't think he's going to be the only guy in that room. But the other second round pick, somebody's got to get cut, and I don't know who it's going to be because we're over the roster spots already. So it's going to be interesting to see. And we're still probably going to make some trades because we do need a center. But it's going to be interesting to see what are your thoughts, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, most Hornet fans are actually pleased with this. Um, you know, I will say I was a little biased at first about the Kneppel pick. I liked them, but I wasn't sure if we needed to pick him with the fourth at the time. But now I'm pretty settled at it. You know, Ace Bailey, that was a whole controversy because him and his team were very adamant about certain teams he didn't want to work out for. He was
Yeah.
really limiting himself,
Yeah.
and I felt like that was going to come back and shoot him in the foot. But seems like Jazz, I mean, again, they traded their guard, Colin Sexton, to us. And I
Mhm.
was thinking to myself then, they got a lot of guards. I wasn't sure what they were going to do because it was them. They had Jordan Clarkson. I'm just like, what are they doing? Like, what's the
Mhm.
vision? But seems like that's the guy they're going with for their future. But I'm gonna go just through the names real quick again. I know we discussed them, but Concanepo, Duke, fourth pick, guard slash forward. Liam McNeely, UConn, the 29th pick. He's a forward. Zion James, another Dookie, 33rd pick, guard slash forward. And Ryan Kalkbrenner, Creighton University, 34th pick, center. So I like what we got. Seems like it brought some size to the team, young talent, which we need. And these are my thoughts. And a friend of mine, put this into perspective. His name is Joshua Balta, another diehard fellow Panther and Hornets fan. He's actually the host of Hive Hoops, which is a podcast from Hornets Lead on Twitter. If you all don't follow, make sure to follow that account. He is a very reliable, avid Hornet fan who knows his stuff. But he told me this, and it makes sense. Remember, the team got sold like about 2, maybe 3 years ago now. Jeff Peterson. They didn't really get to work that first year, between the first 2 years or so. I think now they're finally starting to do what they want. And with these picks and, some of the trades, like the Colin Sexton thing, it's showing they have they have a plan of what they want to do with this team. So I think this will be that first season we may see something a little different. I don't expect it to be a great season, but with the, free agency going on literally as we speak, I got my phone notifications on just in case if there are any splashes with us while we're recording this. But I genuinely think they're now finally starting to do what they want because they obtained a team, but I don't think it's the team that they want together. Like outside of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, I guess Miles Bridges, we don't know. We often hear his name involving trade rumors, but I genuinely think that now is his time to cook. Personally, that's me. With some of these picks, these are a little different than picks we have done in the past. So I think this will be one of those seasons where we start to see some transition to move forward. That's just me though.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully that's the case. Definitely with the past couple of years, it's just been so rough. And I think the big thing is, I mean, it's so, it's kind of goes without saying is just we need to stay healthy. Missing Brandon Miller for the majority of the season last year. Obviously, Mark Williams, who's not on the team anymore. LaMelo missing some time again. It's just these guys that we have on the team just haven't been playing much. And it's frustrating to see because we have talent and we've said it. It's beating a dead horse at this point because we've said it. I say it pretty much every episode almost that we have talent. It's just a matter of putting it together and winning some games and kind of building that winning culture. And it was interesting to me, especially watching the finals. I watched a little bit of the playoffs and the finals. Obviously, there was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on the Thunder, and they had Chet Holmgren. But really, the Pacers team, besides Tyrese Halliburton, really was just a bunch of older role players. And obviously they were talented, but they had won games. My point being is they had won games in the league, obviously, and really played well. But there were some younger guys on that team that hadn't played a ton of games, like Benedict Mathurin. Um, Pascal Siakam obviously has played a lot of games, but he was one of kind of that veteran leadership. Has been there before, done it before. And I think they probably would have won it if Tyrese Halliburton would have went out with the unfortunate Achilles tear, which just hate to see because especially in that game 7, it was just so frustrating. I kind of watched the first half, and once the second half got started getting out of hand, I kind of turned it off because I was like, Pacers held around as long as they could, and Shea is obviously the MVP of the league and a great player, but I think it just kind of they play as a team, and I think a lot of it's coaching. And both those teams played really well together and gelled, and they had role players that did a really good role. Lou Dort is a guy that is like such a gel guy, and Lou Dort is a guy that I would love to have on this Hornets team because he does all the dirty work, offensive rebounds, just a menace, all like steals, good on defense. You know, just a menace on both sides of the floor and does kind of all that unnoticed things that goes onto a game. He doesn't score 50 points a game like LaMelo. He doesn't have a ton of assists. He doesn't staff the or stuff the score sheet, but he does all the little things really well. And I love watching Lou Dort play. He's one of my, crazy to say, but he's one of my favorite players in the NBA because he's just so fun to watch and he's just like a Tasmanian devil out there running around, getting boards, getting rebounds and getting steals, playing really good defense. And I would love to have that kind of player on the team right now.
I agree. I mean, all the talent we can get at this point, we need. So hopefully, with free agency going on, and I know more trades are going to happen at some point. Hopefully, we can make something shake a little bit because we can't have a repeat of last year. I mean, we didn't even reach 20 wins. Not saying 20 wins is even great, but at least the past few seasons, we've at least been able to get over that. When you can't even do that, it just shows how bad you are. And crazy thing is, we still weren't even the worst team in the league as far as record goes. But people will sure talk about us and throw jabs at us like we are. We're just the butt of the league, honestly. And it's so unfortunate, but that's just the Hornets' history. But um, like you mentioned earlier, Mark Williams no longer with the team. Had a feeling that was going to happen with that whole Lakers situation
Hmm.
where a trade can get vetoed, which I did not know you could do. That brand new to me. And I know you as well when that happened, because I remember that night when that happened, we both were just so confused. But
Yeah.
little detail in that. So Mark Williams was traded to the Suns for a Suns 29th pick in 2025, which ended up becoming,
Liam McNeely.
yeah, Liam McNeely, and a future 2029 first round pick. So, and got Mikic in return. We just got rid of him. So, but if I'm not mistaken, he's supposed to be playing overseas somewhere, but I think we still have to pay him that contract, which is insane.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I wasn't surprised about Mark Williams leaving, just because of because clearly the organization was okay with getting rid of him. So I feel like typically when something like that happens, that's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth personally. And I'm sure he wasn't very happy and comfortable there. I'm sure they tried to reconcile a little bit, but there's just no way you could fix that after um, knowing the team wanted, pretty much was okay with you being gone. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but now on to Colin Sexton. That one surprised me a bit. And that one also is pretty big, especially with the Trey Man thing, I personally feel like,
Yeah.
because as much as we want Trey Man back, I don't know how realistic that is now having Colin Sexton, because I think Colin will more than likely be that he may be that six man.
Yeah, 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 for sure. I mean, obviously the big news we traded Yusuf Nurkic, I believe. And do we package anything else with Yusuf, or was it just him? Maybe a second round. Um,
Utah Jazz traded Colin Sexton and a 2032nd round for Yusuf Nurkic. So
okay, okay. So we
we
got a
got
second round. We really got the better end. I mean, we would, in my personal opinion, I think we would have won the trade if we got Colin Sexton for Yusuf Nurkic straight up. And now we get an extra second round pick. I'll take it. You know, Yeah, and looking at it, it definitely um, is interesting. Going to be interesting to see what we do with Trey Mann, especially because we declined his player option or his team option, one of the two. Um, and looking at it as, objectively, Colin Sexton's a better player than Trey Mann. I love Trey Mann. I've been Trey Mann fan ever since I think like the first couple episodes we started this podcast watching the Hornets. I've been a Trey Man truther, and I still, really hope maybe he could stay on this team. His role will definitely be not be the same because Colin Sexton's going to take a lot of those minutes, I think. And our roster is already over the limit as it is right now. There's going to be guys on this roster right now that we have that we are not going to be on the roster in 2025 when we start this season. And just because we have so many players and not all of them are great players, it's going to be interesting to see what we do with Josh Okogie. And, I still think we're going to go out there and get a center. How good that center is, I don't know. It might be a veteran guy, kind of like we did with Miles Plumley or Mason Plumley. And, you know, this roster, it's still kind of in the works. I don't think I think there's a lot of moves that are still going to continue to be made, but I like where we're going. As I said with the Panthers, I think we're a better team now than we were before the draft, and especially after the Sexton deal. I think he's a good player. He's only 26. Um, from Marietta, Georgia, I believe. So kind of coming back to the southeast. And I like the move. I think it's going to be huge for the team. And he's one of those gel guys as well. He's a really good teammate, kind of fiery, plays with a lot of energy. Um, so I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully he plays well for us.
That's what I was about to say. His energy is something different. I mean, he plays hard out there no matter what the situation of the team is, no matter where they are. Like even with the Jazz, I mean, obviously he started with Cleveland, had a lot of shoes to fill because he came right after Kyrie and took his number, which was insane to me. But even in Utah, he played hard out there. So just a player that just has ambition and wants to win, I will take that over anything. And having that with us, I will take it. Although it hurts me that we may not have Trey Mann anymore, we got something that can fill in that gap.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and did we mention Josh Okogie at all?
Yeah, I mentioned I don't that we pushed back. I believe earlier today we pushed back
Yep.
You might have the details on that.
Yeah, so I mean, the Hornets just and Josh Okogie, they have agreed to push back his decision date on his 7.75 million non-guaranteed salary to July 15th. So that's just, we'll hear more about that more than likely at that time.
Yeah.
So I mean, that'll be here before we know it, but definitely got to do something about the center position. We don't have any bigs right now. That's just my only takeaway. Any true bigs at that.
Yeah.
We really got to do something with that position, man. Like you said, I mean, free agency is just starting, so no telling what we can do. I mean, it literally just started an hour ago, so no telling what we may do. And I'm sure more trades are going to happen too. So, and Jeff Peterson, we trust. That's all I can say.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that we pushed back his that contract to the 15th, because we're definitely going to make some moves in between that time and between those 2 weeks. So I don't know, if we're pushing it back to decline it, if we get the guy we want or, how that's looking. It's kind of interesting to me. Obviously we're going to have to make some moves and some guys are going to be cut, like I mentioned 5 times, or they could be sent down to the G League. I mean, I'm sure there's some guys on this in this draft class that'll spend some time in the G League, at least for a little bit. I think Con Kneppel will be probably looking at starting at the 2, and then Brandon Miller at the 3, Miles Bridges at the 4. The center's kind of a question mark, and LaMelo obviously at the 1. But we'll see. I'm not a coach. I just make them, the starting 5 for fun in my brain. But who knows what the 2025, starting lineup will look like come game 1. Because there definitely going to be some more moves to be made, and I think the center position really is a question mark. That's the biggest question mark on this team right now, with Mark Williams being traded. But hopefully, hopefully we're looking at a better season than last year, and hopefully we can make it back to the play-in. I would prefer not to get blown out back-to-back years in the play-in. That would be nice. Um, but hopefully we can make it back there and, potentially win a play-in game, and maybe, just maybe, make in a playoff series, because as like an 8 seed, that would be incredible, because we haven't had that in a long time. And I unfortunately for me, I watch every single one of the Panthers games because, as I mentioned, I just enjoy watching football more than I do basketball. Not to say I don't like watching basketball, but I watch all the Panthers games. But the Hornets are just so hard to watch sometimes, especially last year. Oh man, I would turn on a game, be excited to watch it, sit down after work and watch the Hornets game, and it would just be a nightmare. And I'd just be like, why did I watch that on a random Thursday night after work? It's just so frustrating. But hopefully we could turn around and look good in 2025. And hopefully, as we mentioned this time last year, it's only up for both of these teams, in my opinion. I don't think we really can go backwards, at least for the Panthers. I really like the moves we made. I like bringing back Canales for year 2. And then with the Hornets, I think we had a good draft class, and I think we're gonna have a good free agency class because it just started, as you mentioned, and we have a big hole at center. So I guess in a couple of weeks we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's only the beginning for all these moves to be made. So hopefully we'll have some answers then. And I'm personally satisfied with both NFL and NBA draft for both of our teams. I think it gives us some hope a little bit. I'll give more of the hope toward the Panthers personally, but
Yeah,
if we're being realistic, but I've had personally a few people tell me like we got us a good player in Kneppel,
yeah,
and and these are people who, I mean, everybody knows the Hornets are not known to be a good team at all. So, but these are people, just to hear that in general, it's rare to hear anything positive about the Buzz Boys. So
yeah,
I will
yeah,
take that over anything. So just knowing we got somebody decent out and, got other people feeling the same way, I will take that. So hopefully, hopefully it's somewhat up from here. I mean, it won't be quick, but, hopefully we'll be able to move forward in a positive direction better than last year. That's all we can hope for.
yeah, for sure. Well, I know when I texted you whenever we drafted Kneppel, I was kind of upset because we didn't draft Ace Bailey, but I knew in hindsight it probably wasn't going to be good for this locker room, because Ace Bailey early on in his career is looking like a locker room problem, especially with all the stuff he had with his agent. Didn't work out for teams. There were rumored there was 2 teams that he just refused to play for, and some of the clips I saw after he got drafted by the Jazz, and someone asked him, "What are you excited about to play in Utah?" And he just said like the mountains or something like that. And I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be bad." a young kid. He's got all the talent in the world, but we'll see how it is, see how it goes for the Jazz. And I think, as you mentioned, the Kneppel pick, I really came around on. I think it's going to be a great pick for the team after watching his highlights. And obviously, he wasn't even the number one option at Duke, which I think is going to be huge for his career because he's not going to be the number one option here. And I think he's definitely okay with that. And I think it's going to be a good locker room piece. So
I'm just happy to see he's actually happy to be in Charlotte. He's looking forward to actually be a Hornet. I get those vibes off of him.
yeah,
100%. So anybody that wants to be there and wants to contribute to our team, I will take that any day.
yeah, for sure. Well, Buzz Pound, we appreciate y'all joining us for this little kind of pre or post draft podcast for both the teams, and hope everybody enjoys their summer. Enjoys the 4th of July here coming up on Friday as we're recording this podcast. Goes to the beach, doesn't get burned or anything like that. I definitely got burnt earlier this summer, but hope you guys enjoy your summer. And as always, we appreciate y'all joining us and sticking around with us, and hope you have a good rest of your summer.
And as always, you can catch us on YouTube and Spotify. Like I said, this is not season 2. This is just a special episode post-draft NFL and NBA. So we'll be back in the fall once Panthers season starts, football season starts. We'll be back officially with season 2. We look forward to it. And until then, keep pounding and keep the high mentality.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Buzz Pound. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Until next time, this is the Buzz Pound.